So the goal today is cell respiration in 13 questions. 13 important questions that we should ask. And we'll start with the very beginning. So we're going to write it like this. Q for question, A for answer. Why do we breathe? What's the answer to that one, gang?
We don't die.
That's a good idea. We don't want to die, so we need to do that. But what about not breathing would make us die? We need oxygen. So we need to collect O2 and to get rid of what? Yes. So that's the goal. That's what we're trying to do. Okay, so let's dig a little deeper. Why do we need O2? Where does all the CO2 in our bodies come from? Why would I ask that one question? Because the answer to this is the same. The answer to this first question, why do we need O2? And where does all the CO2 in our bodies come from? The answer is the same. Does anybody know? What?
Cells.
That's true. Something's happening in those cells. Oh, somebody said it. I thought somebody. Yes! Cellular respiration. More specifically, aerobic cellular respiration. Aerobic cellular respiration. That should beg the next question. Yeah, what is cellular respiration? And answer. Chemical reaction. Actually, in reality, a series of chemical reactions. Actually, a whole bunch of them. That allows us to get the energy out of what we eat. We can liberate the energy in things in a bunch of different ways. I could take a bag of Doritos and light it on fire, for example. The energy would be released in the form of heat. But that doesn't happen in us. We don't have a fire that releases the energy inside of us, otherwise we would all just spontaneously combust. It would be terribly inconvenient. So, we do the releasing of the energy in a chemical way, using chemical reactions. And here is the next question. What does it look like? We're going to start simply. We're going to start with our friend glucose. You guys remember glucose's chemical formula? Not from this class, from some other class maybe. I spot you the first C6.
C6H12O6.
Yes, indeed. C6H12O6. Plus, here's our friend again, O2. Yes. Oh, sorry, I probably pushed it to A. There you go. Boom, answer. All right. C6H12O6 plus O2 yields, and in this process, energy is released. Lots of it. Holy cow, lots of it. All right. This energy is released, and we produce what? Yeah, carbon dioxide and water. We do the opposite of what plants do. They do that process. We do this process. Okay? Now, this chemical equation is not balanced. Balancing it can be a little evil at times. 6, 6, 6. Now it's balanced. All right. So here's how this thing works. All the food that we eat is in these complex molecules, and then it's combined through some enzymatic reactions with oxygen and so on and so forth. It releases tons of energy, and in the process produces carbon dioxide and water. So all these atoms are accounted for from this side to this side, but now they're in low energy forms, and here's a high energy form. Okay, so this is going to sound rough. Where in the cell does this happen? What? It sounds bad when I say it that fast. Where in the cell does this happen?
Oh,
There we go.
you thought it was a bad word, but it was really just cell.
That's right. So what part of the cell would you find this occurring? Anyone?
In the memory.
Nah. Give you a hint. Biology. Powerhouse. Oh, there was the key word. Yeah. Mitochondria. Now you're beginning to understand why the mitochondria is the powerhouse, because it has the ability to do this. It has the ability to carry this reaction out. Okay? Question. You're like, how many questions? 13. 13 questions today. All right. Oh, yeah, I should probably try to draw a picture of the mitochondria and do a terrible job of it. Here's like a canoe with a maze in it. That's what it looks like. Yeah. Mitochondria. What is the energy used for? Well, ultimately, it's going to be for driving chemical reactions, but there's a step in between, ladies and gents. There's a step in between. We have to make change first. The released energy is used to make the energy currency of the cell. Energy currency of the cell. What is our currency in the United States? The dollar, US dollar. What is the currency at Chuck E. Cheese?
Coin. Token.
Tokens. All rides and all games are one token. That rat doesn't want your money. He wants your token. Well, he wants your money, and then changes them into tokens, which are essentially worthless. Sorry. You can tell I've got a little bias. Sorry to our viewers at home. I don't particularly hate Chuck E. Cheese himself. It's just the money that I and like 1,000 tickets is worth like a gummy bear at the end. There's a lot of things, but the kids have a good time. But you have to have tokens to power the rides, right? You have to have tokens to power the games. Everything runs off of tokens. There are tokens that power everything in your cells. Power all the enzymes, power the membranes, power transport, power everything. Okay? Does anybody know what is that energy currency? We're done with oxygen. He's already done his thing. Go for it. What? Not LTP. ATP. You got us the last two letters we needed, though. Answer is ATP. Everything, all that energy released is used to make ATP. And if the last I checked, about 38 molecules of it can be made from one molecule of glucose if everything works correctly. Okay, about 38 molecules is made. ATP, what does it stand for? Does anybody know? It's exactly that, yeah. Adenosine triphosphate. That's what that is. ATP is adenosine triphosphate. All right. So, what question are we on now? 8? Now we're rounding the horn now. We're almost there. Question. What does it look like? Now I'm going to simplify just a little bit because these molecules are a little more complicated. Looking if I actually get a picture of them here. Let's see if I can find you one. Thank you for your patience, viewers at home. I should have had a picture ready. It is basically, it's called a nucleoside triphosphate because it looks very much like a nucleotide. Do you guys remember nucleotides? What do nucleotides make up? No, amino acids are protein. They make up DNA and RNA. Here's what it actually looks like. Okay, you got this little ribose sugar and then adenine there, and then a couple of phosphates. Let me make this the simpler version of it. I wanted you to see what the carbons, hydrogens, oxygens, and so on looked like before I drew the simplified version of it. So over here, we're going to draw a little rectangle, and that's adenine. Adenine is attached to this I believe it's a 5-carbon sugar. Yeah, 5-carbon sugar called a ribose. Ribose sugar is then attached to these little dudes right here, which are called phosphates. Now, if I don't include these ones on the end here, and I attach this to a whole bunch more of them in a chain, I've got RNA. Ribose sugar, a phosphate, and then a base, a whole bunch of them in a row. That's what RNA is. Okay? But basically, we take a piece of RNA, and what we're going to do then is we're going to add a couple more phosphates to the end. Okay? So this portion right here, adenine with ribose together is called adenosine. Okay? And then this part is the triphosphate. Okay, this part right here is important because that's where the energy is. So the energy in all the things that we eat is truly stored in the chemical bonds. Okay, and when we break those bonds apart, energy is released, and so on and so forth. Or we set fire to them and break the bonds, the energy is released. So that'll be the answer to the next question. Where is the energy in ATP? And I just drew a line pointing to it in an arrow, but what's the answer to that?
Triphosphate?
It is, more specifically where? In the bond between what? In the bond between the phosphate groups. Okay? So what it actually looks like is that right here. And this bond right here would break and energy would be released. And then you'd have adenosine what? Diphosphate, yeah. And then if you lose another one, you have adenosine monophosphate, okay? But the highest energy bond is right here, second highest is there. But this is what everything takes. That's what everything is fueled by, is by the reaction that can carry out. Let's see here. Next. Just a few questions left. Now we're rounding the horn, gang. Thank you for your patience. Okay. Question, how does it work? Answer. How's that energy going to be released, gang? Here it is. When the bond between the phosphates breaks, ATP releases its energy and becomes a what? Adenosine diphosphate, ADP. You can look at it this way, maybe like a rechargeable battery, because this thing's going to get put back in the mitochondria and it's going to get reassembled and it's going to get that other phosphate attached to it so it's ready to go again. So it's going to keep building it back over and over. All right. This one's not a question, it's a statement. Muscles have a lot of mitochondria. Because they require an enormous amount of energy. Even at rest, gang. Even at rest, it's expensive to own muscle. It is. We all have to have muscle to move, but like to have large quantities or big masses of muscle, it's expensive because we have to feed it. It's very hungry. It wants lots of ATP, even at rest, to be fueled. That's why, you know, bodybuilders and power lifters and professional athletes a lot of times eat a lot of food, because not only do their muscles require a lot of energy from movement, but they require a lot of energy at rest as well. Which is also why, generally speaking, dudes lose weight faster than ladies, because they have a lot more muscle mass just in general, because their frames are larger and muscle burns energy, and because it's making ATP, and basically what fat is stored energy. Okay, now that's all well and good, but what happens? What if there is not enough oxygen? What if we don't have enough oxygen? Now, ultimately we die, but sometimes we run into situations where there's not enough for a short period of time. Like when? What's that? Yeah, when you're running or doing any type of athletic event where you really exert yourself. You know, or coach is like, hey, run up these stairs 10 times, and you're gasping for breath. When you're gasping for breath, what your body is telling you, we're not keeping up. We are burning energy, we're using ATP faster than we can build it. Then we have to resort to other tactics, okay? If there's not enough O2, we have to do another type of respiration. But I have to go back on something real quick. Can we go back to the first sheet we were on? Or did we already write aerobic on this first one? We wrote aerobic? All right. Guess what this one's called? Yes. Then our cells perform anaerobic respiration. That prefix "an" means without. It's the same thing as the prefix "a," is you'd use "an" if the next letter in here is a vowel, anaerobic, and things like that. but A if it's not, like abiotic, without life. So this is saying anaerobic without oxygen. So logically, the next step would be, what does that look like? Answer, C6H12O6 plus nothing, because we don't have any oxygen going in, yields CO2, and energy. Notice I wrote it very, very, very small. We're talking a very small quantity of energy. We're talking between 2 and 4 ATP produced here as opposed to 38. So we can't sustain this for very long, and we're not great at it. Yields CO2 plus what builds up in our muscles from times of exertion like that? Lactic acid, yes. So he's like, is that why your muscles burn? It's one of the reasons your muscles burn. Your muscles also hurt, from delayed onset muscle soreness because there are micro tears that occur through all the little fibers in your muscles and things like that. But yeah, lactic acid can also cause this as well. Ooh, we're almost done. Okay. Question. What does it look like in yeast cells? Well, what does that matter? Well, we're not the only ones that do this. In fact, I'm going to throw a word out here and then you'll know. Anaerobic respiration sometimes is also called fermentation. So if you hear the word fermentation, that's the same thing, okay? What does it look like in yeast cells? Answer, same as it does in humans except for one major thing. Small amount of energy, CO2 plus what? No. When you hear fermentation, what do you think of? Grapes and wine. What's in wine that means you can't buy it? Alcohol, because that's what's produced. Ethyl alcohol is produced. Now, at home, I'm making some bread right now. I'm kind of on an artisan bread kick. And so, in my fridge, I have an artisan bread dough that I mixed up, but I had to let it rise for 2 hours. Mixed it with the yeast, the water, and so on and so forth, salt, and, well, of course, flour. And then I put it in, and the loaf was like, the dough was like this big. And then after a 2-hour rise, it was not that big, okay? What made it get bigger?
The yeast reacted.
Yeah, the yeast took it through this chemical reaction. They were eating the sugars in there, and then they were, and basically flour is a whole bunch of sugars glued together, is all it is, okay? They're eating the sugars in there and producing what? Here's why bread rises, gang. Here's why there's grooves in your sandwich bread. Because they're little holes, they're little bubbles of carbon dioxide that got trapped, and as that carbon dioxide trapped as it rose, that's what happened there. And so, anyway, this is what they produce. Now, one last question before we call it a day. Why don't we produce this? Why do we produce lactic acid instead?
So we don't get drunk.
Yeah, it's because every time you'd start running, you'd be completely drunk. That would be a really inconvenient way to live your life, all right? Yeah, we'd be running from a bear, the bear would be chasing us, then we'd both be drunk, and then we'd both fall over and pass out. There's no way to live. There's no way to live.
Well, if the
Questions?
bear passes out, it still lives.
Yeah, we'll be all right, as long as we wake up before the bear does. All right, that's it for today, gang.